The Phantom of Blackthorn Hill. Blackthorn Hill had always stood ominously on the edge of town, wrapped in a perpetual mist that seemed to shroud it from reality.
The townsfolk whispered about it, their voices trembling with tales of a ghostly presence that haunted its darkened woods.
Few dared to venture there, and those who did were never the same. It was late autumn when Sarah, new to the town and skeptical of its superstitions, decided to explore Blackthorn Hill.
Armed with nothing but my curiosity and a flashlight, I set off at dusk.
The path up the hill was overgrown and tangled with roots, but Sarah was determined to see for herself what lay beyond the mist. As she climbed higher, the air grew colder, and an eerie silence enveloped her.
The forest seemed to watch my every step, the trees whispering secrets in a language I couldn't understand.
Despite the growing unease, Sarah pressed on, the beam of her flashlight cutting through the fog. Halfway up the hill, she stumbled upon an old, crumbling stone cottage. Its windows were shattered and the door hung askew, creaking ominously in the wind.
Intrigued, Sarah stepped inside.
The interior was a scene of decay. Cobwebs hung thickly from the ceiling, and the floor was littered with debris. Yet, amidst the neglect, there was an unsettling sense of presence, as if she were being watched. Sarah moved through the rooms, her footsteps echoing in the hollow silence. In what appeared to be an old study, she found a dusty journal.
Curious, she opened it and began to read.
The entries spoke of a family who had once lived there, and their tragic fate.
The father, driven mad by an unknown terror, had taken his own life,
while the mother and children had vanished without a trace.
The last entry was a desperate plea for help, written in a trembling hand. As Sarah read, a chill ran down her spine. The air in the room grew colder, and she felt a prickling sensation on the back of her neck.
She turned around and, to her horror, saw the faint outline of a figure in the doorway.
It was a woman, her face pale and twisted with anguish, her eyes hollow and staring.
Sarah's breath caught in her throat as the ghostly figure began to move towards her, gliding silently across the floor.
She tried to scream, but no sound came out. The temperature plummeted, and Sarah could see her breath in the air.
The apparition raised a skeletal hand, pointing accusingly at her, as if blaming her for the family's fate.
Terrified, Sarah turned and fled the cottage, her heart pounding in her chest.
She tore down the path, the trees seeming to reach out to grab her.
The mist thickened, and she could hear footsteps behind her, relentless and steady.
Finally, she burst out of the woods and onto the main road, the mist dissipating as she crossed the threshold.
She collapsed, gasping for breath, and looked back at Blackthorn Hill. The forest was silent once more, the cottage hidden from view. Sarah never spoke of what she saw that night, but the townsfolk noticed the change in her.
Her once bright eyes were now shadowed with fear, and she avoided Blackthorn Hill at all costs.
She had seen the ghost that haunted its slopes, and she knew that some secrets were better left buried. The town continued to whisper about Blackthorn Hill, and the story of the family who had vanished became legend. But now, they had a new tale to tell. The tale of Sarah, the woman who ventured into the ghostly heart of the hill and returned with the knowledge that some spirits can never rest.